Hello. It is Thursday, which means another brand new episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds has dropped. And this is one that has allowed us to finally see Prime Kirk in action in Strange New Worlds. So let's get into it. So, this episode, as I just said, is the episode to finally introduce us to Prime Kirk. We've seen Kirk obviously appear in several episodes prior to this, but they weren't, our main Kirk, and the proper first introduction to him was at the end of episode 3 when La'an contacted Kirk because he's still on the Farragut. And so, yeah, it's nice to see him finally in this episode. And I'll talk about whether or not he felt Kirk-like to me because, the past couple of appearances, like many others, he just hasn't felt like Kirk to me. But anyway, this episode is a Uhura-centric episode, and it's really, really good. I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. She's been contacted by these species that live in the deuterium that, unbeknownst to the Farragut and the Enterprise, as they're pulling this deuterium into the nacelles and trying to refine it with this new refinery that they're building, it's actually killing them. And so the entire episode is Uhura thinking she's going crazy because she's hallucinating these different things. Not only is she hallucinating different scenarios, the Enterprise view screen cracking and out flies Spock killing him, or the Enterprise, the corridor that they're on constricting in on her, or even seeing a bunch of dead crew members and fighting herself, but she ends up then punching Kirk. Which I found to be quite amusing. But the main one is Hammer, the former chief engineer of the Enterprise that was killed off in season 1. We're finally getting some more closure around him because we didn't really necessarily get that in season 1. He died and then they were sad, and then because this is an episode of the week type of show, there wasn't really much memorializing of him. Whereas in this episode, whilst Uhura is in one of the nacelles, um, she is watching a video that Hammer recorded with her, showing her how to fix the communications array. Um, because she would constantly ask him to do it, and eventually he would, but he just got so sick of her constantly asking that he just showed her and got her to film it so that way she can continue to watch it if needs be. And it's really nice to see that, it's because I did like Hammer in season 1. I thought he was an excellent character that I would have loved to see more of prior to his death. And yeah, one of the visions that Uhura does see is a zombified version of Hammer, and I thought that was really, really creepy. The fuck's creepy? Really, really creepy and scary. Um, because it's just the way the prosthetics and all and the makeup looked on him, and we see his chest. There's a bit of blood there, dried blood on his chest, obviously where the Gorn hatchlings burst out of, akin to Alien. Um, I thought that was pretty good. We also finally get to see a proper, real interaction between Sam Kirk and James Kirk, because in the original series we only see Sam Kirk's dead body at Annihilation, the season finale of season 1, whatever that episode was called, Operation Annihilate, I think it was. Um, and we've seen Sam Kirk in Strange New Worlds. He appeared a good bit in season 1. This is really his second appearance in season 2 because we seen him in last week's episode getting an earful from human Spock, which that scene was very fucking funny. Seeing the crew hold Spock back from trying to kill Sam Kirk. But it's nice to see it, and there's also mention to their father because prime timeline, George Kirk Sr. is alive, and we get mentioned that their father was the youngest officer to become first officer at the time on the USS Kelvin. Because it's also made mention in this episode that in a few months' time, Kirk is going to be promoted to first officer. Whether or not that means he's going to be promoted from lieutenant to lieutenant commander is yet to be seen. Because in beta canon he didn't necessarily stay on the Farragut for long. He was jumping between different ships and what have you, and then became captain of a few ships as well before getting the Enterprise. But that's beta canon. But so it's nice to see that he stays on the Farragut. And like I said, I really love the back and forth between Sam and Kirk, Sam and James in this episode. It was really, really well done. The younger brother being bitter of the older brother because Kirk is the firstborn, and talking about how Kirk is Sorry, I keep saying Kirk. They're both Kirks. Jim being more favored by their father because of he's in the command program. He's excelling in rank rather quickly compared to him who's just doing the science side of things, the xenobiology and all that stuff, which to Sam means that his father isn't really proud of him. And especially at the end, I love the ending, where Sam tries to be the bigger person, comes up and congratulates him for being promoted and saying that the Farragut's good to have him. And it's a very funny scene, seeing Sam wait for Jim to apologize to him, and then him just like, fuck it, forget it, just forget I said anything, and he walks off at the end of the episode. I also love Uhura and Jim's budding relationship in this episode. It's showing why he picked Uhura to continue on as communications chief for when he takes over the Enterprise. And I also love, we do get some more on the Christine Spock relationship from last season, where they're playing 3D chess and he's wanting to tell Starfleet about their relationship, and Christine isn't about that. It seems like they are having issues. From that one scene, it seems like they're already having issues and that this relationship is not going to last. I think it won't last until the end of the season. That's just my theory. But it's also funny that when Uhura sits down for a drink, Kirk is there and he's mentioning that, about Spock, how he's about to lose in 3D chess. Harking back to, in the original series with those two constantly playing chess against each other. And at the end of the episode, whilst Uhura and James are talking, Spock comes over. And it's a nice little nod, to the original series with these three people. James, Spock, and Uhura, just sitting talking. Is Spock's first introduction to Jim Kirk at the same time, and I thought that was a really, really neat thing. Two more things to mention before I end off. James Kirk did meet, of course, Pike in this episode, which kind of contradicts the menagerie in a sense. Because even though it was just a brief meeting in this episode, they didn't really spend, to my knowledge, too much time together. In the menagerie, James Kirk mentions in that episode that he only met Pike as he was handing him the keys to the Enterprise, essentially. So, bit of a continuity fuck up. Not major. I'm not massively upset over it, It was bound to happen, I guess, with the way things were going. Pike also gets temporarily promoted to fleet captain in this episode, and it's made pretty clear that it's a temporary thing. Because I remember when the trailer dropped that showing Pike as fleet captain, a lot of people were kind of iffy about it. The same way a lot of people are still iffy about having James Kirk being shown up as much as he has been, because it's supposed to be Pike's show, and yet they're forcing Kirk in slowly, which I don't mind. And the last interaction is, of course, between James and La'an, because of, the way episode 3 went. As soon as she saw him, she immediately was like, "Oh, James, like she knew him, but not really. She pulled herself back a bit. But overall, I really enjoyed this episode, and I can't wait for next week's episode, which I'm thinking is going to be the Lower Decks and Strange New Worlds crossover, because as San Diego Comic Con is going on this weekend, I think it's this weekend, they did say that they're going to screen that episode at San Diego Comic Con. So that's me thinking that's going to be next week's episode. I could be wrong until the ready room has happened and they've shown a clip of next week's episode. But yeah, I really enjoyed this episode. It was really good seeing Kirk. He really actually felt like Kirk in this episode to me. I was watching it and he really got Shatner's mannerisms down properly, and he started to feel more like Kirk than he did in his other appearances. So let me know what you thought of this episode in the comments down below. Make sure to subscribe for more Star Trek videos, because I will be, of course, reviewing the Strange New Worlds weekly. There's still a couple more episodes left. And then next week, I will be reviewing, finishing off my Star Trek movie marathons reviews, as well as hopefully reviewing season 3 of the original series. I'm on episode 10 as I'm recording this, so I'm trying to power through them as quickly as possible, but they tend to take a while to get through. But if you want to see more Star Trek reviews from me, make sure to hit the subscribe button, leave a like, and again, let me know what you thought of this episode in the comments down below, and I will see you tomorrow for my Series 6 of Doctor Who review. I'll see you all tomorrow.